Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Careers Talk. My name is Rohan Sharma and I'm an agile consultant based in Netherlands. And today we are going to discuss Scrum Master interview questions shared by our WhatsApp community members. And to help us with the question, we have Esther joining from UK. But friends, before we start, I have a small request. If you find this session helpful and want to support us, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out our future episodes. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Esther. Thank you for joining us today. Esther, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sinan. It's really a big opportunity. I've been following your channel for quite a while now, and I can tell Career Stock has actually formed a very big role even in my career development as a Scrum Master. And I would like to say a very big thank you to you for that. And I look forward to having a wonderful session with you tonight. Thank you.
Great, Esther. So, shall we start?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine, Sinan.
Okay. So, the very first question is your team is failing to meet the sprint commitment, and during sprint planning, team members seems to overestimate what they can achieve. So, how would you facilitate the sprint planning to ensure a realistic commitment and better outcome in the upcoming future sprints? Yes, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Chinan. I think in scenarios like this, where team members are are estimating or they are overcommitting more than what they can actually do, the first thing is to investigate the root cause. Like, why are they overcommitting? Is it because of the pressure from management or pressure from the product owner himself or herself? Or sometimes team members have found that they sometimes they're just too optimistic without realistic data to back up their optimism. And sometimes it could even be that they are not even aware of their past performance and they think, okay, maybe they could do better in a particular sprint. So one thing is for me to, first of all, understand the root cause. And once I understand this root cause, then it's going to influence my next step as to what to do with the team. And I also like to also review historical sprint data with my team. So I tend to look at their burn down charts. I tend to look at their velocity history, mostly maybe for 4 to 5 sprints. I just look at how they are performing over the course of those sprints. And then I review this with the team. So when I show them, they then understand, okay, they can actually overcommit or they can't do whatever they're trying to commit to based on their past performance. And what I also do in situations like this is when we're doing our sprint planning, I share the team capacity with the team so they understand, okay, it's going to be on holiday. This is how much we can commit to because of the availability of people in the team. So by doing that, that's like showing transparency as to how much they can commit to. So I also try to do that as well. I also share with them the average velocity. So when they see the average velocity, they then know how much they can commit to in that particular sprint. So it's not like we have an average velocity of let's say 50 story point and then somebody is trying to commit to 100 story point. So that actually just gives them an idea of how much they can commit to. And if it's like an issue where we see that it's as a result of pressure from management or product owner himself, what I try to do as a scrum master in that scenario is to reach out to them and then just make them understand um, set a realistic timeline with them as to what the team has been able to achieve in the past and what we can do currently. So setting that clear expectation and delivery timeline actually also works with stakeholders so they then understand when we can get some things delivered to them. And once I implement all these solutions, I try to also monitor progress. So whatever solution I've implemented, I try to monitor the progress. Has it really worked or are we still struggling with something else? So that's actually how I tackle situations like this. Now, over to you.
Wonderful, Esther. Thank you for that explanation. Okay, let's move on. So the next question is that you notice that the daily scrum is become monotonous and the team members are, only providing their kind of status updates to you rather than, they are collaborating with each other. So what would you do to refocus the daily scrum on its true purpose?
Thank you very much for this question, Sinan. So when the daily scrum is becoming monotonous, I think for me, what I've really observed in situations like this is when I've got like teams that are actually transitioning maybe from the waterfall way of working into agile because they are so used to like providing status reports. So when they come into the agile way of working, they find it difficult to leave that behind. So what I do in this situation is to share this observation with the team. Oh, well, team, this is what I've observed. Like and then make sure that they understand the purpose of the daily scrum. So I reiterate that to them, that the daily scrum is not a ceremony for us to come share our progress report to the Scrum Master. It is a collaborative ceremony between the developers for them to understand what they will be doing in the next 24 hours. And if there's any issue, they can then raise it up, and maybe a team member could help them. And if it's something that a team member cannot help them on, myself as a Scrum Master can then help them with that in solving that impediment. So it's basically a ceremony for them to collaborate on what they would be doing in the next 24 hours. It's not a scheduled report. So I reiterate that to my team and make them understand. And also to make this non-monotonous, I also try to give them like an autonomy such that they can then facilitate the daily scrum themselves. So as a Scrum Master, even if I'm not around, they are still like able to facilitate those ceremonies and understand why they are there as a team. So I give them that opportunity to do that. And when I see maybe lapses, I then coach them accordingly. So by that, they become self-organizing as well. And also I use techniques like the round robin so that it doesn't look like it's just one person talking. So like when one person finishes talking, the next person can then pick it up. So it just goes around the team like that and everybody can contribute. And also I would always try to monitor progress. So whatever implementation I'm doing within my team, I try to monitor the progress of whatever solution we've put in place just to make sure that that solution had worked. So this is how we normally like approach this situation. Thank you, Sinan. Over to you.
Well, Esther, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So in your sprint review, stakeholders frequently provide some new feedback, that could significantly change the product backlog. But your team is not happy by the constant changes. So how you manage this kind of situation, you have to maintain a balance between the flexibility and the team morale. So it's a tricky situation. So how we are going to deal with it, Esther?
Yeah, I think for us in Agile, Sinan, embracing change is something that we want to do because if you look at one of the Agile values, it says that we should embrace change rather than following a plan through, right? However, this change should be properly managed. It shouldn't be something that would disrupt maybe an existing sprint as much as possible. So what I would try to do in situations like this is to reiterate the Agile flexibility with my team and make sure that everybody understands that in Agile, we embrace this change. We're not avoiding the change. However, we're trying to manage the change as much as we can. So I evaluate this new feedback. If it's something that doesn't really align with our product goal, I evaluate it with the stakeholder as to the cost benefit. So we do like a cost benefit analysis of whatever changes they want us to do. If we're going to be doing these changes, what's going to be the return on investment? What's going to be the impact on our sprint goal? So when we look at all these things, then we can then know if it's really what's a change that we could do or we should do as a team. So I work with my PO to understand that cost benefit analysis. And also we look at the impact also maybe on the resource that we've got or on the team members as well. So in terms of the money it's going to cost us, in terms of the time it's going to cost us, in terms of the effort. So we look at all that. And then once we look at all that and we think that it's really a change that we need to do, for instance, in my previous team, we had a change that we were supposed to do that was more like a compliance. So it wasn't really like something that aligned to the product goal that we had, but it's a compliance thing that we needed to do in order to keep the business running. So we had to implement that. So looking at it holistically actually helps us to know if it's really an important change that needs to be done. And if we agree together as a team that this is an important change that needs to be done, then I work together with my PO to prioritize this change. So if we are currently running a sprint, is this a change that could wait till the next sprint so that it doesn't disrupt the current sprint or the team's flow? So we could then move it into the next sprint. Most times, I would usually advise my PO that whatever change we'll be implementing, it should be done in the next sprint so it doesn't really impact our current sprint goal. So once we do this, I also try to communicate these changes with the other stakeholders such that everybody is aligned as to what change will be implemented in the coming sprint. And like I mentioned, once these decisions have been made, I document the decisions and make sure everybody have access to whatever decision we've made. So I share that across the board as well. So effective communication also helps there as well. So that's basically how I would usually handle situations of changes like this. Embrace the change as much as possible. If it's something that doesn't really align to the product goal, then maybe something we don't need to do. However, if it's something that needs to be done, then let's prioritize it effectively and do it when we should. So I think basically that's how we'll handle situations like this now.
Wonderful, Esther. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. And this question is interesting. So that your team retrospective have become repetitive, and with the same issues being discussed over and over again, and there is no improvement. So how would you re-energize your retrospective, to encourage some fresh ideas and maybe some actionable improvements over the period of time? So it's a tricky situation, and looks like the Scrum Master really need some help.
Thank you very much for the question, Sinan. So basically, the retrospective is one of the Scrum ceremonies, and this is where the Scrum team come together to inspect their process and also make sure that they are improving their process as much as possible. So when the team retrospective becomes something that people don't want to attend, then there is a challenge somewhere. So for me, I try to emphasize retrospective to my team as an opportunity for us to improve and also to celebrate our wins, because obviously not everything is bad. We've done something good as well. So it's also a place where I celebrate my team and the effort they put in, even in the current sprint. So in order to make the retrospective much more lively and more to avoid becoming repetitive, what I do is to like use different retrospective format. So depending on the stage in which my team is, so depending on their maturity, I use different format. And also depending on what had happened in the sprint as well, I use different teams. So I've used like sailboat retrospective, where we use like the wind, what had actually helped us in propelling in the sprint, what has kept us bound in terms of like the anchors and things like that. I use like different, for example, if it's like Christmas season or maybe there's a festive season, I actually work with the global teams and I've got teams across different countries. So if there's a festive season in one country, I can also use the team just to make sure that my team understand that they are valid even as humans as well, not just because of the work they are doing. So using different retro formats and team actually helps in that scenario as well. And also what I try to do is I use different icebreakers. Icebreakers are really effective when it comes to retrospecting. That actually just helps you set the stage and helps your team become open by the time you're asking them for valuable insight as to what has happened in the sprint. So using icebreakers like maybe 2 truths and 1 lies, or there are so many icebreakers, there are so many tools that we could use like Miro as well. They've got like thousands of icebreakers that you could use. And also what I try to do for my team is I celebrate their success. So irrespective of what had happened in my sprint, I celebrate my team, I celebrate the small wins which they've had, and also make them know that they're actually valuable to the project and also even to the organization as a whole, and that their effort is valuable as well. And then at the end of each of my retrospective, I make sure there's an action item coming out of it. So most times we would usually have like 2 to 3 action items, and I assign action owners to those action items. So we're not just in the retrospective to talk, we're there to like make improvement to the next sprint. So when those action items are made, I take them and then put them into the next sprint, assign action owners to them, and then monitor the progress. So when we go into the following sprint, I then ask the team as to what do they see? Have we actually made any progress with this particular action item? Has anything changed? And then we can then decide on what to do next from there. So that's basically how I do my retrospective and make sure that it's not becoming repetitive or boring for my team.
Wonderful, Esther. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. So your team velocity has been, declining over past 3 sprint, and your product owner is concerned about meeting the release date. So how would you approach this issue, and maybe what action would you take to help the team to regain the productivity?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Sinan. So when it comes to the team velocity becoming like declining over a period of time, it doesn't just start in one day. There would actually be like a cause as to why this is happening. So what I do in situations like this is to first of all investigate the root cause. Why is our velocity declining? And some of the reasons I've seen in my experience has been maybe because of skill gap, or because we've had a new team member join our team, or because maybe we've got like dependencies, maybe on other team or even within the team as well, or maybe resource constraints as well. So when we have like people leaving the team to another team, and then we're not having replacement for people, that's actually some reasons as well. So when I investigate the underlying root cause and then I identify what exactly is happening, then that's going to guide me as to what steps to take next. So for example, if it's a skill gap issue, what I do is I just pair my team member who's got a skill gap with a more knowledgeable member who could actually train them. So more like a KT session. And then we also have like some standard documents in my team. So we have them on Confluence to help people get to understand the product better as well. So that's really how I address the issue of skill gap. So for example, if it's an issue of dependencies, maybe we needed to depend on an external team for something. I try to like work with the team to develop a clear path for resolving that dependency even before we commit to that user story in that sprint. So I work with the external team, work together on an SLA as to when we should expect whatever we need from them, and then just carry them along our process of planning as well. Also, if it's an issue of maybe like people not being available in the team, we don't have enough expertise in the team. I work with the management and also like people manager to get like other people to come on board to assist with the project. So depending on the root cause, it's going to influence our decision as to what to do next. And also what I try to do in my team is to establish a safe space as well. So when people are open, when there's a safe space, people are open enough to share ideas as to maybe if there's an issue with a user story and they know that, oh, this user story, we won't be able to finish it, then because of that safe space, they can really talk and say, oh, Scrum Master or whoever is leading the team, we won't be able to do this because now you've created a safe space for them to express themselves. So when I join any team, I try to build that trust and establish that safe space as well. So also what I do is I would usually use tools like Planning Poker, so where we use them in estimating our user stories as well, so that we just have an alignment and everybody understand what each user story demands in terms of effort, complexity, and things like that. And also I give each team member the chance to explain their estimates. So when we're done with our planning, I make sure that everybody have the chance to explain why their estimate is 5 or 2 or 3. And then just having that conversation guides us is to the real estimate for that user story. And in situations like this as well, what I try to do is to make sure that whatever implementation I was making, I check with the team to ensure that that implementation had worked. And if it hadn't worked, then we'll look for something else to do. So that's basically how I would usually handle situations where there's an issue with velocity declining.
Wonderful, Esther. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. So next question is on burn down chart. So let's say your burn down chart shows that work is not progressing as expected, and the large amount of work is left to complete in the last few days of the sprint. So how would you address this issue during the sprint to ensure more consistent progress over the period of time? Yes, Esther?
Thank you very much, Sinan. So when the burn down chart shows an inconsistent work progress, there's usually a reason why it's like that. Most times, it's either maybe the user story are too big and then the team cannot really like complete it at the end of the sprint, or maybe they have to wait till the end of the sprint before they can then close that ticket. Or sometimes because of dependencies that were not addressed previously before they committed to the user story. So the first thing I would say is have a root cause, understand why this is happening. So you could, for me, I try to like monitor the burn down chart for previous sprints as well and see what's been happening. So that actually just gives me like an idea as to what is happening in my team, or maybe they're struggling with something, and then I can then spur up like a conversation on it. So understanding the root cause first is the first thing. So if it's an issue of maybe the user stories are too big and then the team cannot actually finish it until maybe 2 days or 3 days before the end of the sprint, then you can work with your business analyst or your product owner and the team as well to break down user story into smaller bits during your refinement session, such that those user stories are small enough to be completed within at least 2 to 3 days. So once those user stories are completed, then they can be closed. Then you have a proper burn down chart. So encouraging like small user story is good. And also in terms of managing dependency, if you identify that the issue is because of an external dependency, try as much as possible to have a clear resolution path for dependencies before your team actually commits to a user story. So what I do with my team is when we are doing our refinement, when we identify that a user story is going to be dependent on another team, I'm quickly reaching out to that other team, working with them to establish an SLA such that we both are aligned as to when this will be done within that sprint. So that actually helps us in moving forward. And if there's a need for us to like put in other tasks such that the team is not like just waiting, doing nothing, then we know we can actually put that in. So that's really what I would do. And also I try to encourage my team to update their tasks regularly. So I've been in a team whereby the team, they wouldn't update their board until maybe like a day before the end of the sprint. So each day after the daily stand-up, I try to encourage my team like, okay, at the end of the day today, could we please update our ticket such that it just reflects the true progress we've made on that ticket. So that's another thing. And also another thing I try to do with my team is to limit the work in progress. So we don't just want to be starting work and not finishing it. We want to start and finish. So when we finish it, then we can pick up the next one. So as much as possible, we want to reduce our work in progress and ensure that we're moving our ticket to done before picking up something else. And I think the last thing I do with my team is to monitor the cycle time on the Jira ticket. So whatever tool you're using, it could also apply. So monitor the cycle time. So for example, for me, if a ticket is taking more than 2 or 3 days, then that's a red flag for me. I pick it up with the right team member and understand what exactly is happening. Is it that they're blocked? Is there an impediment that I need to be aware of? And then we can then make sure that that ticket is moving forward. So having done all this, I think for me, it will actually like improve the team's burn down chart, and you would definitely see much more progress.
Wonderful. Some great suggestions. Yeah. Thank you, Esther. Great. Let's move on. So your team has been struggling with estimating the story points, and that leads to uneven workload, and there are like frequent spillover to your next sprint. So how would you guide your team to improve their estimation process to better balance the sprint?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Sinan. So, if my team is struggling with estimating story points, it could be maybe because sometimes I've joined a new team whereby they were not really like so used to the old story pointing. So I had to like teach them from the beginning and make them understand the old relative estimation which we use in Agile. So it could be that as well, like the team are not familiar with relative estimation. So what I do in situations like that is to facilitate a workshop with the team, whereby together we work to understand what relative estimation means and what it means to us even in Agile. So what I do in situations like this is to also develop what I call a reference point for my team. So we all have an alignment as to what one story point means for us. So it could just be a small change on the website or a small color change in terms of what we're developing. So once we understand what story point means to us in terms of our effort, complexity, as well as the risk involved in doing what we're doing, then we can then start building on that. So everybody now have an alignment as to what one story point means. So when I bring a ticket, then they can then reference it back to that one story point to say, oh, this is going to take us, I think, maybe 5 story points based on this reference ticket. So I work with my team to establish a reference ticket whereby we can then align it to other story point. I also work with them in terms of establishing their knowledge as to what relative estimation really means. And also I ensure that capacity reviews are done, and we also add buffers to the sprint. So we don't just use 100% of our capacity to commit to user stories. So we leave some buffers as well, such that if anything happens or there's an urgent thing that we need to attend to in that sprint, we would be able to attend to that. So I also leave out those buffers as well. And I defined a dependency resolution for my team. So there's a clear path as to how dependency will be addressed in the sprint so that we just avoid those mid-sprint blocks so that everybody just aligned as to what's expected of and the team members. So that's really how I will handle like a situation where people struggle, where my team is struggling with estimating story points.
Great. Just to extend this question on estimation, let's say some of your team members dominate the planning poker session, right? And then there are other team members who are hesitant to share their opinion. And this basically led to a suboptimal estimate. So how would you facilitate this session, to ensure that all voices are heard and that the estimates are accurate? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sinan. So in this situation where maybe someone is dominating the planning poker, so what I do is in my team we use the online planning poker. So when people give their estimate, nobody knows until I review those estimates. So once I review those estimates, once I see those discrepancies in the estimate, I just reach out to the person who has given the estimate and just ask for their thoughts as to why they have given that estimate. So by that, everybody in the team have opportunity to talk as to why they have given their estimate. And once everybody finish like giving their reasons as to why they've given such estimate, then we re-estimate again as a team. So based on what we've heard, based on what Sunan has said, based on what this person has said, can we re-estimate as a team? So by that, everybody have an opportunity to share their opinion as to the reason why they've given a particular estimate. And it's not just being influenced by one person. So everybody has got like the same opportunity to give their estimates.
Correct, Esther. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on quickly to our next question, which is on conflict. So let's assume that you are two key developers, on your team. They have some personal conflict, and that affecting their collaboration. And now the tension is starting to influence other team members, as well. So it's spreading. So as a Scrum Master, how would you resolve these kind of conflict, and how you're going to restore the team harmony?
Thank you very much for the question, Shinan. So conflict is something that I think can't be avoided when we have like team members, because obviously we're different people with different culture, different beliefs, experiences, and things like that. So in situations like this, what I want to do is first of all to like explain this observation to these two team members that I probably maybe two senior developers, because I've had issues like that also in my team, whereby we were working on a particular functionality and a particular developer wanted us to use the server side and the other one wanted us to use the client side. And there were just this clash in the team and people really don't know what to do because they were both senior developers and we actually relied on them to give us a direction as to where to go. So for me, approaching conflict is something that I would want to reach out to the two developers to understand why this is happening. So in that situation, I reached out to them and then they both gave their opinion as to why this should be used and why this should be used. And because I am not the expert, what I did in that situation was to like get an expert. So I brought in our solution architect who knew more about the system. So it was able to advise us as the one that works best for the current system, which we were using in the organization. So by that, I was able to hear from both developers and then they were able to voice out the reasons why they think this should be used or that should be used. I think giving them that opportunity to talk actually helped them understand that it is not just about one person perspective. Everybody's opinion is equal, even in the team. And also, I try to encourage a constructive discussion when doing this. So it's not more like a pointing at the people, rather I focus more on the problem at hand or the issues we're trying to solve. So when they were giving their reasons as to why we should use a particular one or the other one, I wasn't so focused about maybe a developer or the second developer. I was focused on the issue we're trying to solve and how it actually aligns with our product goal. So that's also one way that I look at it when it comes to conflict. It's not about the people, it is about the issues we're trying to solve. And also, I try to also facilitate an agreement. So based on what they've all spoken of, we're able to agree on a particular one that actually favored the goal of the project. So they all understood that, yes, I heard their perspective and we were able to agree together on the particular outcome that would actually be of benefit to the organization and also to the project that we're working on. So when handling conflict, what I try to do is to make sure that both voices are heard, or whosoever the conflict is impacting, everybody's voices are heard, and together we work together to agree on the best resolution for the project.
Wonderful, Esther. Yeah, great. You're giving precise and concise answers, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Okay, so let's move on. So next question is, you're working with the newly formed team. So that has like a lot of talented individuals, but they struggle to work together. They are struggling to collaborate with each other. So how would you guide the team to, through this forming stage and help them to become a high performing and work as a cohesive unit?
Thank you very much for the question, Sinan. So I know when working with a newly formed team it can be really difficult because these are different people that have not really worked together before. And like I mentioned before, we all come from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different culture. And currently I work with a global team and we've got like different people from different part of the world together in the team. So I think for me, what I've learned over the years in my experience is when working with newly formed team, the first thing I try to do is to build trust with my team members. So individually, I try to know them. So beyond the role, maybe like a dev or whatever, beyond their role, I try to also know them on a personal level. So building that trust, like what's their strength, what do they enjoy doing, if they want to talk about maybe their families or just having that trust built. That's the first thing I try to do. So I do that through one-to-ones with my team members. And also to also foster collaboration in my team, I conduct team building exercises. So for example, in my team, we have a fun Friday. So that fun Friday, what we do is we don't discuss anything regarding the project. Rather, we discuss maybe somebody has gone on holiday. They just come there and share their experiences, what they've done during their holiday, or maybe somebody had done something, maybe a renovation of their house. They just come there and just tell the team about it. So that actually fostered that collaboration between my team members, such that they don't just see themselves as co-workers. Now they're seeing themselves more beyond just the work which they do. And another thing I try to do is to encourage collaborative decision making. So when there's a time for us to make decision, maybe on a particular solution that we need to do in order to implement a project, it's not just about one person saying we should do it that way, but everybody in the team has an opportunity to speak and contribute to that decision making. So I give everybody the opportunity to contribute to whatever decision we need to make as a team. Also, I make sure that my team understand the product goal as well, like what exactly we're trying to achieve at the end of whatever we're building each sprint, so that everybody understand that high level picture as to what the goal is and the milestone and the vision that we've got for that product. And what I notice is when people are aligned to the overall goal, so when they are doing even their tiny bits of the work, they understand that this is actually contributing to something high up there. So, and the last thing I would usually do in my team is to regularly inspect, like I mentioned previously. So we regularly inspect our products, we regularly inspect our processes. So this we do through our sprint review and also our sprint retrospective. And any area of improvement, we identify it and then put it into place such that the next sprint becomes better. So that's really how I work with newly formed teams.
Wonderful, Esther. Thank you. Let's move on. So next question is, during the sprint planning, one of your team members identify a potential risk that could disrupt the project timeline, but your product owner dismiss that particular concern, and then your PO told that it's not going to happen. So how would you handle this situation to ensure the risk is adequately addressed without causing a friction between the team and the product owner? Yeah.
Thank you very much for this question, Sinan. I think if a team member identifies a potential risk, then it's something obviously that we need to look into
Yeah.
because obviously it could happen. And so I think what I would do in situations like this mostly would be to first of all work with that team member to clarify that risk. Like, what exactly is the risk, like what's the impact if it's really happening, and what's the probability of this risk happening, and what could even be the trigger. So when I understand like the probability, the impact, then I can actually like know like the probability score. So for example, if it's something that is going to impact us and when it happens, it's going to take maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks for us to recover from it, then that's possibly like a high impact risk and something that I need to quickly work on. And also if it's something that we know that the probability of it happening is about 70% or 80%, then that's a very high risk that we need to work on. So I would work with the team member to understand the nature of the risk, the probability of that risk, and also the impact. So depending on what I get, it's going to influence my decision if this is a risk that we can actually like cover up or something that we need to work on urgently. So once that is done, for if it's an high impact risk, what I do is to create a mitigation plan. So I work with the team to create a mitigation plan for that risk. How can we like reduce the probability of this risk actually happening? Or even if at all the risk happens, what's going to be the contingency plan for this if it happens? So that's really what I would do with my team. For example, we had my tech lead actually working on a particular critical feature which we were working on. So he had his wife due to give birth, I think in a few weeks' time, though he doesn't really know the time that was going to happen. So that was a risk for us if that actually happened before the end of the sprint. So what I did in this scenario was to pair him up with another senior developer. Should in case he had to leave mid-sprint, the senior developer can then continue with where he stopped. Actually, I gave the other senior developer, worked with him, and then we were able to identify some low impact tasks that he could pick up while still working with my tech lead. So what happened is during that week, his wife actually gave birth, and the thing really didn't impact us too much because we had actually planned for that to happen. Had it been that we didn't plan for it, then that's going to be like a struggle for us because we wouldn't be able to meet the sprint goal. So when that happened, the other developer just picked from where he stopped, and we were able to still meet that sprint goal. So for situations like this, what I would want to do basically is for me to, first of all, assess the risk, understand the impact, understand the probability, put in place mitigation and contingency plan should in case the risk happen. And also, I would also communicate this also with my stakeholders as much as possible. This is the risk that we've identified that could happen in this sprint. Should this happen, these are the contingency plan that we have in place. So clear communication also is something that I value so much when it comes to risk. So everybody is aligned as to what could happen in the sprint. So that's really how I will handle this situation now.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Let's move on. So you are in between a sprint, you are midway through a sprint, and an external dependency, which is very important and crucial to your team's work, is delayed, right? Now, this puts your sprint goal at risk. So how would you manage this issue and reduce its impact?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. So if an external dependency, which is crucial to our sprint goal, is being delayed, I think the first thing I would want to do in this scenario is to reach out to the external dependent team. So whatever team we're dependent on externally, I'll reach out to them just to understand the reason for this delay and try to understand if it's a short delay or something that's going to be like delayed for a long period of time so that we can have like a proper plan as to how to mitigate this. So if I reach out to them and it's really like a short delay and then we can still meet up with our sprint goal by the end of the sprint, yes, that's fine. However, if it's a longer delay and it's something that would definitely impact our sprint goal and we won't be able to reach the sprint goal, what I would do in this situation is to then work with them as to when can we then expect this? So if it's not going to be in this sprint, is that going to be in the next sprint? So like just gathering that time which they would be able to deliver their part, just understanding that time, that's going to help me plan even for the further sprint with my team. So once I get this with them, if it's still unresolved by the end of the sprint, mostly we would usually have like a contingency plan, like if this kind of things happen. So most times what we do in my team is if we're dependent on an external team and this kind of things happen, we usually have like other user stories in the backlog, which the team can actually pick up and then work on. instead of actually just waiting and doing nothing while this is being resolved. So we would usually pick up those user stories. And what I would also do is I would also work with my team to reallocate team members across other tasks that are still pending in the sprint, such that everybody is still working together to complete whatever we have committed to in that sprint. And also what I would do in this situation is I would communicate with my stakeholders. So obviously stakeholders are waiting for this particular feature to be completed, and now there is an issue, we can't really meet that goal. So clearly communicating to them early enough such that they understand what issue we're currently facing and why we won't be able to deliver that at the end of the sprint is important. So I send out like an email to them so they understand that at the end of this sprint, we won't be able to achieve this goal that we've set for ourselves because of this. However, this is what we would be able to deliver at the end of the sprint. And then these are the plans that we have for the future sprint and things like that. So effective communication is also something important for me here. And the last thing I try to do is also to monitor whatever resolution that we put in place and to document it as well. So if we have agreed with the other team that, okay, they would be giving us whatever we're dependent on them for in the next sprint, I document this and also make sure that the stakeholders are aware of this, and then we can pick it up in the next sprint. So that's what I would do.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Esther. Great. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So the question is, there's one of your stakeholder, or let's say there are a couple of stakeholders, and they are pushing for one or two features that are not aligned with your current product vision, and your product owner feels pressure, and PO is considering including all those features into your sprint backlog, and you as a scrum master aware about it. So how you are going to manage this kind of situation to protect the team and your product vision?
Thank you very much, Sinan, for the question. So if a stakeholder are pushing for features that doesn't really align with our product vision, I think the first thing, because the product owner is the custodian of the product and also the product vision, the first thing I will be doing is to discuss this with my product owner to understand, okay, this feature that the stakeholder is asking of, this is not in alignment with our product vision. What is their justification as to why we should do it? Is it because we need to tap into a particular market share, or is it because we need to meet up with a particular regulatory compliance? Though it might not be aligned to our vision, but we still need to maintain the business, right? So if it's something that is maybe like compliance related, or maybe it's an opportunity in the market which we need to quickly grasp, then maybe something we could consider. So I want to first of all work with my product owner to understand the justification as to why they've asked for that feature. So depending on what that is, then I'm going to work with him to say, okay, this is really doesn't really align with our vision, but it's something that we need to do in order to keep the business running. Then we can then work in prioritizing that feature. However, if it's something that it's not really important, it's just something that they just want us to do, maybe then we need to sit down with the stakeholders and make them understand that this doesn't really align with our product vision. These are the features that we've considered, and these are the benefits that we think we're going to be getting from these features that we consider to have been aligned to our vision. So just making them understand and setting clear expectations with them is something that I would be working with the product owner to do. However, if it's something that we then need to do as a team, then I would work with my team to estimate the effort required for doing that feature. So if we're going to eventually be doing the feature, how much time is it going to be costing us? How much money is it going to be costing us? And what's going to be the impact of actually doing it on other feature which we've previously prioritized? So that's also something I would be working with a team on. And I would also make sure that this is also clearly communicated to the management so that they know that there is a change in our priorities and things that actually have changed. And then I think in situations like this, I would also work with the product owner, like more like a trade-offs, like what are we going to be taking off from our current roadmap or our current plan in order to accommodate this new feature. So working with the product owner to probably liaise a trade-off is something I would be doing, because obviously we don't want the team to be burnt out such that they're just packed with everything and then people don't really know the direction in which they're going. So we want to like prioritize and take some things off, put some things in order to accommodate this new feature. I think the last thing I would do in situations like this is also to coach my PO also on effective prioritization and also managing expectations with stakeholders. So for instance, if it's a feature that doesn't really like have any benefit or so is not adding to the product vision and it's not really something that is really that important, then this product owner should be able to manage expectation with the stakeholders as to features that could actually go into the backlog and features that actually contribute to the product goal as well. So this is something I would coach my product owner on as well. So in all of this, I think it just depends on what exactly the feature is and what's the impact of doing that feature. So over to you, Sinan. I'm not sure if I answered the question right, but
No, I
that's
think it's perfectly in line. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to our next question. So your team, they rush to finish the work at the end of the sprint, and it's happening now quite frequently. And that result in compromise on the quality, and some of the time, some of your user stories are incomplete. So how would you guide your team to create and adhere to a strong definition of done to improve the quality?
Okay, thank you very much for this question, Sinan. I think if a team is rushing to finish their work at the end of the sprint and compromising on quality, it's really something to be worried about, right? Because when this happens, then whatever our customers are getting, it's not the best quality they could get from us. So in situations like this, what I would do is, first of all, I would gather data because I wouldn't want to go with my team just to tell them, oh, I don't think our quality is working. But I would gather data like our defect count, the number of maybe live defects we've seen in the couple of the past sprint, our technical depth. So gathering this data, I'm going to present this to the team and just let them understand the impact of the work we've been doing on quality. So everybody knows that, yes, there's an issue with our quality. And I think what I would do in situations like this is I would also conduct a workshop with my team. So we would review this data together, understand the root cause. Okay, why do we have so many defect counts? Is it because we don't understand the acceptance criteria for these user stories, or is it because we are pressured? Is it because we are overcommitted? Like just understanding why we've got this low quality in our work. It's something really important. I'll tell you, there was a time in my team whereby we had issue with quality with performance, and then I had the performance manager reaching out to me as to, okay, my team has actually deployed something and that had impacted performance. So what we did in the team was to review the performance, and then we saw like truly there was a decline, and then we identified the root cause as to it, and it was exactly this. Developers rushing to finish work at the end of the sprint. And then when we dig deeper, we saw that it was because of overcommitment. So the team has actually committed to more than they should at the beginning of the sprint, and they were trying to finish up everything, which had then impacted the number of tests they were supposed to do. So they had to bypass some in order to finish up the ticket. So for me, I would say, first of all, identifying the root cause of the issue and then working with the team. And in terms of the definition of done, what I would do in situations like this is I would work together with the team for us to make sure that we all are aligned as to what done means for us. So everybody on the team knows that, okay, we can't really move a ticket from testing to done until these particular things are done on it. So getting that alignment as to what done means for the team is something important. So even if maybe the product owner is saying, oh, this is completed, we can move it to done, somebody can say, no, we still have to do these checks and this checks and this check. So for instance, in my team, we have like a checklist which we need to do in order to say a particular story is done. So establishing that with the team such that everybody have an alignment as to that is actually something important for every Scrum team, I would say. And also on what I've found to be helpful to me is establishing some measures on the board. So for instance, on the board, you cannot really move a ticket from a particular column to another. It just pops up with a message to say, and has this checks been done? Has this checks been done? So that reminds the developer as to what checks needs to be done before they then move into the next column. So establishing that measures across the board is also something important. And also once I've implemented all this, what I try to do is to monitor the quality trends from that point and then see if there's been an improvement. And if there's no improvement, then we need to talk about another solution that can be implemented. For the most part of this, there's usually like improvement once we do all this. But in situations like this is really what I will do. I will review the data, make sure everybody is aligned as to what done means, establishing some measures across our board to enforce quality, and also monitoring our quality trends over time.
Wonderful, Esther, for that great detailed answer. Wonderful. Let's move on to our last question of the day. Yes, it's almost hour now. Yeah. So the last question is, your team is frequently slowed down by some technical impediments, but they are hesitant to escalate them. So how would you motivate your team members to share these issues early, and what steps would you take to resolve them quickly? Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question, Sunan. I think in situations like this where team members are hesitant to share maybe problems or impediments, it could be as a result of an underlying issue, maybe because they've been blamed before, or maybe because somebody has scolded them before for actually doing something wrong. So I think in situations like this, what I will try to do, firstly, whatever team I join, I try to establish that safe space within my team such that people are comfortable in sharing problems. And if they are facing challenges, they can actually be comfortable sharing them even with other team members as well. So establishing that safe space is very, very important for me. And that's really what I do in my team, first of all. And also in situations like this, I try to track the age of tasks across the board in my team. So I have like tracker for each ticket. So I know when a ticket is going more than 2 or 3 days, and then I can flag it up during the daily stand-up just to understand why that ticket is taking longer than we had planned. So by that, the developers can then say, oh, I need help with this. I need someone to help me with this. And then a team member can then say, I can help you with that. So that actually just unblocks them. So highlighting those aging tasks is one way of actually doing that as well, such that they can then start speaking about the impediment. And I think also making people understand a clear guidelines as to how to escalate things. So for instance, if they're having issues and they don't really know how to go about it, just setting that clear path for them to know, okay, when you have this issue, you can reach out to your tech lead, or you could reach out to a particular colleague, and then they could help you. That actually helps them also in resolving those impediments. And I think fostering an environment that is non-judgmental is very important, because when a team member raises an impediment and then they are judged for it, or their performance is being judged based on maybe how many impediments they've been raising, then those team members will be hesitant to actually say that again in the future. So establishing that non-judgmental environment is very important when it comes to things like this. And I think for major impediments, escalating it to the right people as well. So for instance, for myself, it's not only impediment I can actually help the team in resolving as a Scrum Master, but I have the opportunity to escalate it to the right team that could support them. So I think for me, once I identify impediment like this, I'm able to like escalate it to the right team and make sure that those impediments are quickly unblocked as quickly as possible, such that my team can then make progress. So when team members are hesitant in talking about impediment, it's really an issue of, it's really linked to an underlying issue. Most times it's usually because there isn't that safe space. I believe once that safe space is created and people are comfortable enough to share challenges, then we would see team members talking about impediment better.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you for sharing some great answer to some of the trickiest question. So thank you for that. And friends, if you made it this far into the session, there is no way you're not hitting that like button. So please hit that like button. It really motivates us, our guests, and everyone.